Good morning, Dubai. Good morning, Dubai. There we go. Very good. So my name is Mikko, and I've always been a big friend of Hack in the Box. Or I used to be a big friend of Hack in the Box until Hack in the Box cut my ponytail 11 years ago. And then I promised to never be back. But I broke my promise. When Dylan asks, you can't really say no. So I'm really happy to be back in here. So 11 years ago at Hack in the Box Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, there was a charity auction during which organizers were auctioning off t-shirts and stuff. And I was sitting in the audience. And at some stage during the conference, the organizers and Katie Musuris, who was keynoting yesterday, asked me to come on stage. And me, like an idiot, I get on the stage. I have no idea what they have in mind. So they tell the audience they're going to auction off my ponytail. And they did. They cut it away. And that's when I promised myself I'll never be back in here. But here I am. I hope I'll retain my hair until the rest of the event. So my job for the last 27 years has been to understand who are the attackers, who are the people behind the attacks, where are the malware writers coming from, the botnet masters, the spammers, the phishing gangs, which governments are active on the internet with offensive cyber power, which intelligence agencies should we be monitoring, which militaries. I've been trying to build a picture of what's happening in the online world and what's going to happen next. And we've seen, obviously, massive technological revolutions during these years. In fact, we all are living through a series of technological revolutions. The first revolution already happened. The internet revolution is already behind us. That already happened. And that's easy to understand when you think about what computing used to look like 20, 30 years ago. I mean, we were using computers already back then, but the difference to today is that those computers were not on the internet. They were not connected to other computers. They were not on internet. They were not in local area networks. I remember when I joined F-Secure in 1991. Obviously, we are an IT company. We were an IT company. We were sitting at our computers all day. But then when you needed to move files from one computer to another, because we had no networks, we were using these. Remember these? The youngest people in the audience have no idea what this is. This is the USB thumb drive of the 1990s. This one is double-sided, double density, so it's 1 to 2 megabytes of information. And today, it would be hard for you to find a computer which would not be online, which would not be in a local area network, which would not be on the internet. So this revolution is now behind us. Computers all over the world are now on the internet. And now we are in the middle of the next revolution, which is the revolution of connected devices. This is the revolution where everything else goes to the internet. Computers already went to the internet. Now everything else is going to the internet. Or if you look at it the other way around, everything is becoming a computer. Now, we all know this. We know how devices are becoming smart and how all things that use electricity are getting connectivity added to it. Everything you plug into power sockets, you will be plugging in to the internet as well. However, this revolution is not over yet. It's actually in the beginning. Because right now, only the so-called smart devices are on the internet. And eventually, even the stupid devices will be on the internet. And this is important to understand because often when we find vulnerabilities from smart devices like, cars or smartphones or smart TVs, a very typical reaction is that people tell me that, I don't like these IoT devices. I'm not going to buy any IoT devices to my house. And what I tell these people is that you're wrong. You will be buying IoT devices to your home, whether you like it or not. Because very soon there will be no option. What the situation is, that today, when you go shopping for, let's say, a washing machine, you can buy a traditional, stupid washing machine, or you can buy a smart washing machine. And there's differences between these devices. First of all, the smart washing machine is more expensive. Second of all, the smart washing machine is obviously on the internet. There's a display, there's an app, there's things you can do with it. But what I'm saying is that in 10 years' time, even the stupid devices will be on the internet. Even though they don't have a display, even though they don't have an app, even though there's nothing you could do over the internet to your washing machine, it's still going to be on the internet. Because it will be going to the internet not because of you, the consumer, but because of the manufacturers. There's no benefits to you, but there are benefits to the manufacturers. Manufacturers want to collect data. They want data. Data is the new oil. So how do you collect data if you manufacture washing machines? Well, the only way to do it is to put your washing machines on the internet. So the manufacturers want to put all devices on the internet because then they know where their customers are. Then they know how their products are being used. Then they know what kind of failures they get with their products. This is valuable data. But they can't put all of them on the internet today. Today they can only put the smart devices on the internet because smart devices are more expensive. IoT connectivity is not free. It costs money. And if stupid devices would have connectivity added, the prices would increase too much. They wouldn't be competitive. But, as you know, in IT world, technology gets cheaper and cheaper. In 10 years' time, the price of adding connectivity to any device is going to be trivially small. And that's when everything will start to go to the internet. Not just the smart devices, but all devices. And once you bring these devices to your home, they will go to the internet regardless of what you do. You won't be able to block them from going to the internet. You won't be able to block these devices at your router or at your gateway because they won't be using your router or your gateway. They won't use your network. They won't use your Wi-Fi. They will use 5G or any of the new protocols that we are deciding right now. So there's nothing you could do to prevent this. The only way you could prevent your traditional stupid washing machine, which you will be buying in 10 years from going to the internet, is that you would wrap it in aluminum foil. And we are not going to do that. So everything becomes a computer. Everything will go online. This revolution will happen whether we like it or not. This revolution will happen whether we play part. Our devices will be going to the internet, and there's nothing we can do to prevent it. And this is problematic for us security guys. I have been a computer security guy all my life. And for years and years, I thought that my job is to secure computers. I'm a computer security guy. I secure computers. That's what I thought my job is. Well, that's not my job. Today, everything is becoming a computer. Our society is already being run by computers. The lights are on in this room thanks to computers at power plants and power grids. Water coming out of the tap is coming out of the tap thanks to computers at water purification plants and at pump stations. The lunch we'll be having later today will at least partially be manufactured in a food processing plant. Our societies run on computers, which means my job, your job, our job is not to secure computers. Our job is to secure the society. That's our job. And that's a pretty big responsibility to be put on a bunch of geeks and nerds like us. But that's what we got. This is the job we got. This is the responsibility we have, and we have to take it. We are the first generation in mankind's history which is living its lives both here in the real world and in the online world. We were given a free and open internet. We were given a free and open internet. And the question is, what kind of an internet will we be leaving behind? When we leave the internet to future generations, when we leave the internet to our children, will it still be free? Will it still be open? Very good questions. Because the internet is being threatened. It's being threatened by online crime gangs. It's being threatened by criminal hackers. It's being threatened by governmental surveillance and intelligence agencies and militaries. In fact, for the first time in mankind's history, it's now more likely for us to become a victim of a crime in the online world instead of the real world. Think about that. The most likely place for you to become a victim of a crime is no longer the real world. This is especially true in fairly safe places in the world. Like, what's the most likely crime here in Emirates? Somebody might steal your car or break into your house. Those things happen, but not that often. However, when you leave the real world and go to the online world, then you are no longer in Dubai. You're no longer in the real world. Now you are on the internet. And internet has no geography. Internet has no geography. There are no distances. There's no borders. No geography. Which means you are as close to online criminals as any other victim. And this is a very big shift. And this is the first time this shift is happening in mankind's history. And we've been making mistakes as we've been teaching companies and organizations on how to secure themselves. One of the biggest mistakes we, all of us, have been doing for years and years is that we've been telling organizations that the way you secure your network is as if you would be building a safe. As if you would be building a safe around your network. A safe which keeps everybody out. That's the idea. You build a safe with thick walls and a thick door and a great lock. And if you're good enough in building a safe around your network, then nobody can get in. This is what we have been telling companies and organizations. The problem here is, what happens if somebody gets in anyway? What do you do then? Because the fact is that we will not be able to keep everybody out all the time. And if you only focus in keeping everybody out all the time, you are not focusing on how to detect when there's a breach and how to react when there's a breach. And today, that's exactly what we should be doing. Nobody likes to do that. Nobody likes to assume that their safeguards will fail. Nobody likes to assume that they will be hacked. They like to think that it's some other organization which gets hacked. And this means that companies are not focusing on detecting anomalies in their network. And this is the reason why it takes so long for organizations to realize that they've been hacked. We know this because at F-Secure, we are running incident response teams. And these are the teams which get the phone call when a company gets hacked. And when those calls come in, those calls are always the same. Can you come right away? We've just been hacked. We need your help. Then we come over. We start looking at the network. And we tell the client that you're right. You're right. You are hacked. But you were hacked last year. You only found out today. But there's no rush. We'll be back next week. There's no rush here. Our statistics show that on average it takes months for an organization to realize they've been hacked. And that's not good enough. The larger the organization is, the harder it is for them to keep everyone out all the time. So, how many of the largest companies on the planet are hacked right now? How many of the Fortune 500 companies are hacked right now? Answer: 500. Every single one of them. Every single one of the Fortune 500 companies is hacked right now. Why? Because if you are a Fortune 500 company, you have a global network of at least 100,000 workstations. And if you have 100,000 workstations, you have a breach. Guaranteed you have a breach right now. Might be a small breach. It might be a couple of infected laptops in an airport lounge in Tokyo, but that's a breach. You will not be able to defend all of your systems at all times. And this is not a fair fight between the attackers and between the defenders. Attackers have access to our weapons. They can always go and buy or download all security tools and analyze how they work and try to figure a way around them. And they have unlimited time to do that. And then when they launch their attack, we defenders, we don't have that luxury. We don't have unlimited time. We have to be able to block and detect those attacks immediately. Attackers can try again and again and again. They can fail many, many times in getting in, and it's enough for them to get in once. Defenders have to succeed every time. Attackers only have to succeed once. However, this also works the other way around. When we are trying to catch online criminals, the online criminals have to be able to hide successfully all the time. It only takes one mistake by the criminal hackers and they will be caught, or they can be caught. Once logging into a service without using a anonymizing VPN or a Tor hidden service rerouting system or something like that, revealing your real world IP address might be enough for these guys to get caught. And when we think about the ways how the attacks are changing, we are seeing some very clear trends. Right now we're seeing changes in how attackers are attacking our systems. One of the change that we're seeing right now is the fact that everything in our financial world is changing. We used to say that time is money. Today, I guess you could say that money is data. Money has become data. And this is an important point for our defenses, because attackers historically have always been faced with the problem on how to move the proceeds of their attacks from the online world to the real world. This is surprisingly hard to do. It's fairly easy to gain access to large amounts of valuable information, like, passwords or accounts or bank accounts or credit card numbers. But how did you move it from the online world to the real world and use it for something without getting caught? This is surprisingly hard. If you have, let's say, 10,000 credit card numbers, obviously that's very valuable, but how do you take those credit card numbers from the online world and move them to the real world and buy, let's say, a Ferrari with those credit card numbers without getting caught? This is hard. And this is the choking point. This is the point we defenders should be squeezing as hard as we can to make it hard for online criminals to enjoy the proceeds of their crimes. If they can't move the money, if they can't enjoy it in the real world, we win. Or if they get caught moving the money to the real world, we win again. And this is the reason why online crime gangs have resorted to fairly desperate ways of moving their attack money from the real world to the online world. Attacks like this. Take a look at the ATM. Suddenly, it just spits out money. Nice. I like ATMs like this. This is security camera footage of the Karbanak gang emptying ATMs by hacking them. The guy orders more money with his mobile phone. He even has a bag for all the money he's going to be taking from this ATM machine. He's going to empty the machine. But even here, the money you can make actually isn't that large. How much money is there in that ATM? This footage is from Spain, so he's taking out euros. And a typical ATM might have a few tens of thousands of euros. And you won't be able to buy a Ferrari with that. You would have to empty dozens of these ATMs, which increases the likelihood of you getting caught. And this is the reason we are now seeing a very clear trend in which attackers are switching their targets from traditional banks, traditional online stores, and from traditional companies, and they are more and more targeting cryptocurrency systems. Systems based on blockchain. This is why we see so much fraud in cryptocurrency exchanges and cryptocurrency wallets. This is why criminals love Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, Zcash, Litecoin, all these systems. Because here, if they gain access to large amounts of, let's say, Bitcoins, they can go and buy a Ferrari with their Bitcoins, and we will not be able to find them. And this is good news. This is good news. This is great news for most of us. Because most of us are not working for cryptocurrency exchanges or cryptocurrency wallets. Most of us are working with traditional companies. And the more we see the attackers shifting their attacks from traditional companies into cryptocurrency systems, the better it is for us. This is great news if you don't work in crypto world or cryptocurrency world. It is bad news if you do. And we've seen many examples of this trend going on. Obviously, all the ransomware problems started really getting big thanks to Bitcoin. That's why we've seen such a large amount of cryptocurrency ransomware families. Our roadmap for ransom Trojans is now so large, I can't even fit it on a single slide. And this trend is also the reason why we're seeing all these scams on the internet. Scammers posing as Elon Musk, promising you free money. Just send me a little bit of Ethereum and I will send you 10 times more back. Well, he won't. And that's not Elon Musk. That's Elon Musk with 3 L's. And surely nobody falls for this, right? Right? Wrong. I mean, these are blockchain systems. You can just go and look at the addresses and see how much money there's been sent. In this case, 283 ethers were sent to these scammers. And there's lots of these scams going around. For example, this is me giving out free Bitcoins, free Ethereum, and free Litecoins. Hurry up. Send me a little bit of Ethereum or Litecoins and Bitcoin and I will send you 100 times back. Well, I won't. And that's not me. That's someone with Twitter handle Ravari43. That's not my Twitter handle. My Twitter handle is Mikko. But people do fall for these. And this trend is also the reason why we are seeing all these exchanges getting hacked. These are all examples of cryptocurrency exchanges which have been hacked over the years. And this makes a lot of sense when you think about it from the point of view of the attackers. They want to make money. They could target online banks or real world banks, or they could target cryptocurrency exchanges. Well, banks obviously are hackable, but banks are pretty hard targets. Why are banks hard targets? Because banks have been around for decades, or in some cases for hundreds of years. They have thousands or tens of thousands of employees. They have large security teams. These are startups. These companies might have 20 guys. That's it. They don't have decades of experience in securing their networks. However, they still control large amounts of money. Millions and millions. In some cases, literally billions of dollars of worth of money. Yeah, the valuations have dropped over the last 2 weeks, but still, we're speaking about serious amounts of money. And this is a very clear trend. Another clear trend we already spoke about. The fact that everything is becoming a computer, and the IoT revolution will change how we have to defend our networks. Take a look at this thing. This is a reactor which just went critical. That's a nuclear reactor. Why am I showing you a nuclear reactor? Because this nuclear reactor, like all nuclear reactors today, is of course being controlled by computers. Computers control everything. And that means that everything is becoming hackable. And yes, I am the father of the Hypponen law, the law which says that whenever something is smart, it's hackable. So here's a smartphone, a hackable phone, smartwatch, a hackable watch. There's a smart car in the next row. That's a hackable car. Smart city, smart grid. As we connect things to the internet, they do become hackable. And when we look at things that people put online, there are surprising things out there. Smart doorbells, smart mattresses, smart curtains, all kinds of things. We also regularly find control interfaces for plants and factories exposed on the internet. Things like these, or these, or these. Now, some of these plant interfaces or ICS systems that we find from the internet, some of these are actually honeypots. They look really bad, but then when we investigate, turns out it's not a real system. It's just on the internet to get hacked. So these guys can analyze how they get hacked. But some of these are real plants. Some of these are real factories. And yes, they are on the internet on publicly routed IP addresses, and they have no security. They have no passwords. These are typically VNC sessions or Windows remote desktop sessions. And you just point your VNC client at this IP address. There's a service waiting in the default port, and there's no authentication. There's no password. You're straight in. So what do we do when we find systems like these exposed on the public internet? What do? Well, we call them up. We figure out where is it, which plant is this, where in the world is it. We pick up the phone. Hello. Hello. This is Mikko from F-Secure. Nice to meet you. Listen, we believe your factory's control interfaces are exposed on the public internet with no password. Oh, no, they're not. We believe they are. No, they're not. We believe they are. No. I mean, we use systems like that, but they are not on the internet. They are in an internal network which cannot be accessed from the internet. I'm in Finland and I'm looking at your interface right now. Our interface is not accessible from Finland. Listen, I can go and start pressing at these buttons. Please don't press on the buttons. And the story is always the same. The system was originally in a separate network. It was a standalone system. It was secure. It could not be accessed from the internet a couple of years ago. And then something changed. The internet works on top of TCP/IP. TCP/IP is now 49 years old. And the TCP/IP protocol has been so successful for 50 years for the reason that it reroutes. It pretty much guarantees connectivity between point A and point B, even if the connection between them is cut. TCP/IP was designed to be able to deliver data packages even during nuclear war. So if there's no connection between A and B, TCP/IP will reroute. It will try different routes until it gets through. It even goes around the world if needed to get from point A to point B. And that means when network topology changes, things get exposed. If there's any route from the public internet to this system, TCP/IP will find it. And networks change. When the system was set up, it was in a separate network. And then someone reconfigured the network, reconfigured the router, changed something in the firewall, connected two networks together, added a remote link, added a proxy, added a remote desktop session. Someone installed a modem so they could work from home. Something changed. And then they become exposed. It's surprisingly hard to keep things off the internet. And at the very same time, we are putting things on the internet on purpose. So for example, cars. I mean, what are cars today? Cars are data centers on four wheels. A modern car has hundreds of processors, thousands of sensors. And as soon as we start thinking about car hacking, we get these awful ideas in our heads about evil hackers hacking our cars and killing us. And that's a movie plot threat. Movie plot threats are the kinds of threats which are technically doable. I mean, technically you can do that, but it's those things that only happen in movies. So for example, if you've seen the latest edition of the Fast and Furious, you'll know that part of the plot involves criminals taking over cars, every car in a city, and then using those cars as weapons. I guess I should have given you a spoiler alert for telling you the plot, but it doesn't actually matter because it's not a very good movie. So that's what car hacking looks like in movies. What does car hacking look like in the real world by real criminals? Well, let me play you another video. This one is not from a movie. This one is from a security camera in UK. That's a Mercedes. That's a hacker with an antenna trying to find the keyless key fob from inside the building. Then he has a transponder to that guy who's now sitting inside the car and just started the car by enhancing the signal of the key with the antenna. Then they bring in a driver and the driver drives it away. This is car hacking in the real world, and this makes sense. Car thefts are already a big problem, and if the car theft gangs could steal the cars without breaking windows and hot wiring the cars, of course, they would prefer to do that. And let me also make you, or give you a forecast. One day, someone, somewhere, is going to convert self-driving cars into self-stealing cars. Imagine waking up in the morning to realize that your car has driven off on its own and it's already out of the country. Could happen. Will happen. Eventually it will. And when we look at the growth in botnets that do not infect computers at all, we see this trend clearly evolving. So these are botnets that do not infect computers. They don't infect computers at all. They only infect connected devices, IoT devices. For example, a very typical target would be a security camera. All security cameras today are IoT devices. They are all on the internet, and they are all most likely Linux servers. And they're actually surprisingly powerful Linux servers, because a security camera today has to be able to encode HD or 4K video in real time, and it has to have enough bandwidth to stream HD or 4K video in real time. So when you take over a few thousand security cameras, you actually have a pretty powerful botnet. a botnet which you can use for spamming or launching denial of service attacks. And I guess the most famous IoT botnet so far is Mirai. Mirai, which is Japanese and means the future. This is the future of botnets. And when Mirai was going around in December 2016, that botnet was used to launch a massively large denial of service attack against the second largest DNS provider on the internet. And as you know, when name services go down, effectively the internet goes down. The services are still there, but most users have no way of accessing them. Like Google still works, but nobody remembers the IP address for google.com. And when Mirai was going around, the way it infected systems was actually trivial. It was just doing port scanning on the internet to try to find Telnet D services. And whenever it found a Telnet port, it would try to log in to that Telnet address with default passwords and default admin or usernames. That's all it did. That's all it did. Let me repeat. It used Telnet. No joke. Telnet. What? Like, why are we having Telnet services enabled in our IoT devices? This makes no sense. I mean, this is something we learned in our computer systems and in our computer servers already 15 years ago. Telnet sucks. We don't use Telnet in our computers. We've replaced it with mostly SSH, which is much better, which is encrypted and authenticated. So why do we have to go back and repeat the same mistakes with these new IoT systems? How come we're unable to learn from the things that we already realized were bad ideas and stopped doing? Now we're going back and doing them again. And when Mirai was going around in December 2016 at F-Secure, we were fingerprinting the infected devices to figure out what they were. And we saw smart doorbells infected by Mirai and smart security cameras. And I called up some of the companies which were affected by Mirai. Hello. Hello. This is Mikko from F-Secure. Nice to meet you. Listen, I have a question for you. Do you have a Hitachi heat pump at your office? Yes, we do. It's right there on the wall. Does it work? Is it pumping heat right now? Yep, works fine. We believe that your heat pump is part of a global botnet, which is right now launching a massively large denial of service attack against the second largest name service provider on the internet. And he says, and then he says, cool. And that's not really the answer you're looking for. That's not really what we want to hear from victims of botnets like Mirai. And that's a great example on how we haven't yet seen the wake-up call for IoT security. And there's a deeper problem here as well. For example, when companies buy, let's say, coffee machines, and most coffee machines today are IoT coffee machines, so they are on the internet. When they buy those coffee machines and bring them at the office, they're not worried about the coffee machine getting hacked. I mean, it's just a coffee machine. It's a coffee machine. Even if somebody hacks this, it's not that serious. It's just a coffee machine. Well, it's not a coffee machine. It's a link in your network, and it is the weakest link in your network. The attackers are not interested in your coffee machine. They're interested in the network behind the coffee machine. And if that's the easiest way to get in, that's the way they will come in. And we have seen this multiple times. We have seen this over and over again. For example, we've seen this in governmental attacks. Over the years, as we've been analyzing offensive use of cyber power as used by various countries and various governments and various militaries and various intelligence agencies, we see them using attacks like these. Attacks like these are coming in surprising ways. coming in, like for example, with the attack of Petya, summer of 2017, which got into the victim's systems by using a financial bookkeeping software and then sending a update from the official update servers. This was a military strike launched from Russia targeting one country, targeting Ukraine. And the targeting was done with this bookkeeping software because this software is only used by Ukrainian companies. It's a Ukrainian software used by Ukrainian companies to do bookkeeping and to file their taxes to the Ukrainian government. And the end result was massively large problems in Ukraine. Many supermarket chains were closed because Petya overwrote their systems. However, the attack went well beyond Ukraine. If we remember the headlines that were in the news at the time, there were so many companies in the West or in Asia or in North and South America which were hit by this attack. They were hit because they are international companies doing business on every country on the planet, including Ukraine, which means they have to file taxes in Ukraine. And if you have to file taxes in Ukraine, the way you do it is with this MEDOC financial bookkeeping software. That's why they were hit. And this is what attacks launched by Russian cyber operatives look like. Russian cyber operatives using cyber weapons. I wonder what these Russian cyber operatives look like. Well, they look like this. This photo was taken by AVID, that's the Dutch intelligence. They took this photo in April at Schiphol airport in Amsterdam. These four guys just got off a plane, an Aeroflot plane, which just landed from Moscow Sheremetyevo to Schiphol. The guy whose name is or whose face is masked is a diplomat working at the Russian embassy in The Hague. Then the Dutch intelligence watches these guys as they go and rent a car, drive the car from Amsterdam to The Hague, and check into this hotel, Marriott The Hague. Fun fact. I was yesterday at that hotel. I was visiting Europol, which is 200 meters away from this hotel. I was staying in this very hotel myself yesterday. But the reason why the Russian cyber operatives were in this hotel in April is that building over there. That's OPCW, the International Center for Fighting Chemical Warfare Attacks. And this happened in April. This happened 2 weeks after the chemical strike in United Kingdom. This happened 2 weeks after case Skripal. And then the Dutch intelligence monitors these Russians mingle around in the parking lot of the Marriott and move their rented car right next to the fence so that the trunk of the car is facing the chemical warfare center. Then the Dutch go, intercept the Russians, open up the trunk and find it filled with Wi-Fi hacking gear. This is what Russian cyber operations look like today. And this is how the Dutch handled it. And I actually like the fact how they handled it. They posted all of this publicly on the internet. They took away the passports from these guys, put them on the next plane back to Russia and sent them away. Then they put their passports on the internet. They're on the internet today. That's the kind of talk the Russians understand. Power against power. So, companies get hacked in surprising ways. When we have to stop telling them that the way you defend your networks is by building strong walls around them. Strong walls, strong doors, strong lock. That's no longer good enough. Instead, we should be assuming that the attackers will get in anyway. If you build strong walls around your network, if you build a safe like this, then you will not need a motion detector inside the safe. Like, why would you put a motion detector inside the safe? Nobody's going to get into the safe. You don't need a motion detector inside the safe unless the attacker figures out a way to get in that you didn't think about. Getting in through, I don't know, through the ceiling or something. In that case, it would be really, really nice to have a motion detector inside your network. And this is how modern defenses should be working. The motion detectors we can put in our networks are sensors which collect network traffic and build a baseline, after which you know what normal looks like in your network. And once you know what normal looks like in your network, then you can start building defenses. Then you can start looking for abnormal. When you know what normal looks like, then you can start looking for what's abnormal. And I'm not telling that these defenses are perfect or that they will always defend you, because they won't. There will be false alarms. They won't be able to build a baseline of a clean network if the network is already infected when you start looking at the baseline, when you start installing the servers. But this is the best we can do today. And the most important thing is that we have to assume that we will have a breach. We have to assume that our defenses will fail. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to keep the attackers out. We should. We just shouldn't assume that we will always be successful, because we won't. Thank you very much. Thank you.